Good morning, everybody. This is Zach Snell here with you for a presentation. I'd like to thank everybody who's come together to help put this PowerPoint together. It's been wonderful. Shout out to the professor who's grading and also to Weber State. And without further ado, let's dive in. Today's presentation is titled, I Can't Hear You, where every huh, what, and come agains are all accepted here. We understand you. Before we dive in, let's start talking about how the ear works. First, sound is produced by an external object. The sound waves and movement of air then travel down your auditory canal here. It vibrates your tympanic membrane, which is connected to the ossicles here. The ossicles then vibrate and move and interact with the fluid just inside your cochlea here. The fluid then goes around and brushes up against hair cells that line the outside of the cochlea. The job of the hair cells is to change that movement into electric energy to stimulate the nerve, and it sends that electric signal right into your brain through the auditory nerve. Now, there's lots of different kinds of hearing loss. There's conductive hearing loss, which is the inability of your outer ear or middle ear to work properly. For example, you could have an earwax clogging your outer ear. You could have your ossicles that are a little too stiff. They don't vibrate quite right. Or you could have an ear infection, which would impede the ossicles from vibrating properly. The next one would be sensory neural, and that has to do with the electrical conduction of the sound, and it has to do all with the cochlea there. If that's not working right, then you have a sensory neural hearing loss. And it's not a 100% thing. It can be split 50-50. It's a mix. You could be mostly conductive. You could be mostly sensory neural. It's just up to what your body has at the time. And it ranges from all ages. You can be born with a hearing defect, or you can develop it later on in life, as we find that most people do. So a couple of fun facts for you here is that according to the World Health Organization, around 466 million people worldwide have disabling hearing loss. And of those, 34 million of these are children. Then approximately 5.6% of the United States and 6.4% of Utah's population fits in the category of impaired hearing. So we definitely have our fair share of population here locally. Let's review that internationally. Again, approximately 466 million people suffer from either deafness or partially or temporary hearing loss. Nationally is approximately 2.6 million, and then statewide you've got around 205,000. So some things that for your social determinants of health, things that might play a factor into your hearing loss, or the hearing loss might play a factor into those determinants. The first one that pops right up is a lack of communication. And that, if you can't properly communicate to your healthcare provider what you need, it's going to be very difficult to get the proper care. So often they'll bring interpreters, or hospitals will provide an interpreter to help those with the hearing loss or deafness if they don't have an assistive device. Children living with this condition may not have a family wealthy enough to afford therapy or auditory training. Cochlear implants are so expensive. So expensive. Same with hearing aids. I see over at Costco, the prices are way up. It's crazy. But it's a valuable thing to get your hearing back. It really is. You can develop more hearing loss if you're living in areas with prolonged loud noises, such as New York City. There's construction jobs where you're working a jackhammer, or you're on loud sets. If you're a rock star, you're playing gigs every night. Loud prolonged noises will damage those hairs in your cochlea and will eventually cause your ears to ring. And that's from the damage. So the best part about living in the United States is we can have adjustments made for those with disabilities. And I love this, that Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 prohibit discrimination against qualified employees with disabilities. So if you are a qualified employee, you can work. You can get that job thanks to this act that happened in the 1990s. So thanks for that. So some specific concerns that I had when it came to those with hearing impairments would be their psychosocial development. It's really hard to communicate. If you think of how essential it was in your childhood, going all the way up through high school, to have friends, it's really hard to have friends in a hearing world. And often there's a deaf culture that has set aside their feelings and they associate with their deaf friends. And you can have that development, but it's really hard to have that intercommunication between both the hearing and the deaf without that sign language. And sign language is a really unique human adaptation to be able to talk to those who can't hear. Now, again on the employment, can you imagine being deaf and going into a job interview or not being able to hear with their questions that they're asking you very well? Always asking, what? Can you repeat that, please? It might not look so good in an interview. So this is something that could be limit their income. And as you can see from the charts down here, you can see all of those that are employed who are deaf is a 48% compared to those hearing individuals is a 72%. And from my past research, it had shown that a lot of it comes from the interviews and those willing to hire those that might need that extra assistance to communicate. Some causes, let's go over those. Genetics, you got your prolonged exposures to noise, which we talked about. Aging, about the age of 50, you start to really feel the impact of hearing loss. You could have that buildup of earwax, some diseases and infections that we'll go over in the next couple slides, and then you could have your ossicles start to degenerate or your cochlea start to degenerate over time. And then some drugs like chemotherapies can really affect your hearing. Also Lasix, you can get some ringing in your ear if you overdose on Lasix. There's a little example for you. As far as Maslow's, I had thought that you could meet all of them, in my opinion, with some lifestyle adjustments or auditory therapy. Those unmet, I chose safety because there's a lot in this world that have hearing cues, such as cars. You're driving, you hear a horn, you stop. Such as something as easy as elevators. Sometimes you aren't paying attention and then the elevator door closes on you. I don't know. Love and belonging is another one that I felt was an issue because of that lack of communication. And that's something that is crucial in your early years of development. Persons with hearing disabilities have the potential to function healthy and normal lives with the aid of therapies or assistive devices. I believe this full-heartedly. I have a friend who was able to do marching band with a cochlear implant. He was born deaf and he had a cochlear implant and he wasn't even really able to hear music very well. But he was able to listen, to tune in, and overcome his disabilities with experience and his device. So, as far as communicable diseases amongst the community, I wasn't able to find any, but I was able to find those that would lead to your temporary or permanent hearing loss, including meningitis, mumps, cytomegalovirus, and chickenpox. Non-communicable diseases, and I took the same route, those that can cause your temporary or permanent hearing loss. Meniere's disease affects the inner ear, or the cochlea, and also the the vesicles that help moderate your balance. Those with this disease experience vertigo often. And also jaundice. It's been shown that despite preventative and therapeutic interventions, severe jaundice remains one of the leading causes of neurodevelopmental disabilities. I thought that was rather interesting. Now, specific concerns for harm to self or to others, or even others' harm to the one with the hearing loss. Driving, we talked about that. Lots of auditory cues, whether it's cars passing you by, or horns, or even rain hitting the windshield or the roof. Operating heavy machinery can be really tough because you need to be really aware of your surroundings. And if someone's yelling, "Hey, stop!" It's hard to hear if you've got assistive devices. Not to mention, if you do use your assistive device and heavy machinery is loud, you have to turn it down, which makes it harder to hear other people around you. So the ways to cope that I listed are your auditory devices, specifically for driving, like a cochlear implant or hearing aids. Flashing lights. I had wondered, what in the world would deaf people do, or the hearing impaired do, if they couldn't hear someone knock on their door? And this was the answer, that they had doorbells, that they posted these little light dots around their house, and every time somebody rang the doorbell or knocked, it would sense the vibration, it would light up areas of the room and say, "Someone's at your door." So I thought that was awesome. Vibrations as well. In order to listen to music, they put their hand on a stereo and can listen to music. And there's other vibrations that can warn you of oncoming things. For example, a truck that has vibrators set into the chairs that if you get too close to an object when you're backing up, it'll vibrate your chair and let you know you should stop. Thank you for attending my lecture. I really appreciate it. Here are my resources. It was a lot of fun researching. I got a soft spot for those who are auditory disabled, and I've got a sister who is serving an LDS mission during ASL, and she really loves it. So I look forward to hearing some stories from her and maybe putting them into our presentation. Thank you for listening, and don't forget about the treats in the back. Thank you.